Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ruby Summer Rose Court. To recap where we left off, Ruby was officially coronated as the Queen of Vale, and we met certain characters like Blake and Roman Torchwick, and she was given a tour of the capital city of Beacon by Glinda Goodwitch, and then she had a opportunity to ask Lord Ozpin some questions about the menageries, the history of the Grand Wizards, and the question behind portals and how they work and why they're so important to this world, and how they are the gateways between the Kingdom of Vale and the other planes of existence that humankind in this plane has been going through to solicit help from other peoples from other planes. And so now we dive in to Act 2, Part 2. Ruby looks wiped out already. Good morning, Your Majesty. I trust you're ready for the day? Not wanting to disclose to Glinda the strange things I had been seeing last night, I simply nod, trying not to look as weary as I feel. Yeah. Excellent. I have a few things to run by you today before we make our way to the portals. My peers have been made aware of your arrival, and are expecting you today. You mean the wizards? Do all of them live outside the castle, like you? Yes, we try to keep ourselves removed from the daily struggles and machinations of the Rose Court. We work in conjunction with the throne, not under it. Maintaining a healthy distance is one of the many ways we try to reinforce that fact. Yeah. There used to always be a court wizard who served as a liaison between the two. However, the last one died in the same attack that took the Rose Monarchs. The position has been empty ever since. So it isn't your job? At this point, it is, but only by the barest of technicalities. The previous court wizard was my mentor. I'm fulfilling his duties out of respect for him and out of loyalty to Lord Ozpin. But back to business. We furnished your room with a larger desk to accommodate some of the maps you and I will be going over later. Yeah. And finally, there still remains the issue of some of the lesson plans I'll have to draw up for you. Don't think that just because you were out in the desert that means I'll forgive you for not practicing your runes, young lady. Yeah. You were supposed to be hiding your identity, not letting the strength of your young mind slip away into the sands. Yeah? What? Are you just agreeing with everything I say? Are you even listening to me, Rose? Yeah? Unbelievable. Jeez, what do you want? For me to disagree? I'm trying to play along here. Your speech is vulgar and low class. No doubt picked up from that Xiaolong girl. You can't afford to be so casual with every person you meet, Rose. Is it just really difficult for you to speak to people without slipping in an insult or two? And shouldn't you be using a more royal title for me? At first I might have, but in the brief time I've come to know you, Rose, I'm wondering if taking a rougher approach is the better way to command your attention. I won't scrape and bow to every whim you have just because of your bloodline. I've seen many roses wilt before their time. You'll need to work harder than that to convince me you were the one. You were worth the years I've spent searching for you. Okay, fine. I don't want to argue over this. I didn't mean to upset you, Lady Goodwitch. I just had a really rough night and I'm on edge. Suddenly pausing, Glinda bites back whatever sharp thing she is about to say, to instead fix me with a piercing glare. Rough in what manner? You do look tired. Something shifts in her demeanor, almost incalculable. Did anything interrupt your sleep, Rose? The stern image relaxes, replaced by a flicker of concern. Nightmares, by any chance? Oh, she knows. No. I'm fine. Just tired. Just like that, her stone stiffens, a hard edge entering her words again. I'm about to be very frank with you, Your Majesty. Are you ever anything else? I hold no love for the Summer Rose Court. Not the families too busy plotting against each other over... Not the families too busy plotting against each other to notice this plane is falling apart, nor your sordid politics. Whatever sick magic is in your blood that allows you to sit on the throne with no ill effect holds no interest for me. But Crow believes in the power of the Rose lineage, and Ozpin believed in Crow. He continues to suffer daily and risk his life for Crow's ideals. So for their sake, I'll be patient with you and trust you not to lie to me again when I ask you this. What disturbed your sleep last night, Ruby Rose? Opening my mouth to respond, I choke on the words, a cold sweat building on the back of my neck. I never spoke about my nightmares, not to anyone except Yang. Stubbornly clenching my jaw shut, I slink lower in the chair, feeling sullen and rebellious. No one in my life has ever spoken to me this way. Keeping secrets, I see. You're worse than the old fool himself. It's just nightmares. I don't want to talk about it. Breaking off whatever Glinda was about to say next, the doors to the throne room open wide. A familiar, uneven gait makes my ears prick up. I find myself sitting straighter on the throne. It would be in your best interest to answer her question, Ruby Rose. Lord Ozpin, good morning. Glinda is less pleased by his arrival, face pinching up worse than ever. Ozpin, you are supposed to be resting. Are you determined to die from overexertion? I won't mourn you if you manage to pass away through sheer stupidity. Hearing your gentle voice whisper such words of encouragement gives me strength to face the day, my lady. She rolls her eyes, lips pressed thinly together. Don't worry about me, Glinda. I'm not broken just yet. More importantly, if Miss Rose here is already getting the dreams, we'll have to reschedule a few matters. Already? The nightmares aren't new. I've been getting them ever since I was a little girl. If they're important, didn't Crow ever tell you? He was the one who took care of me on the nights when they were really bad. A glance is shared between the two, something in their years of experience together allowing them to communicate without words. He failed to mention this, yes. Your lover failed to mention a lot of things? Lover? What? Such as where and why he decided to hide the only person capable of sitting on that throne without dying. For 7 years. We've been over this, Glinda. Whoever let those Grimm into the castle that night had to have been someone inside the Summer Rose Court itself. No one else would have been able to lead the horde to the throne room. Everyone was suspect. No one could be trusted. Not even me. He trusted you enough to leave you on that cursed chair, though, didn't he? To leave us on our own to rally the troops and rout the enemy without a word of warning? Steel enters his voice. It's punctuated by the loud crack of his cane as he jabs it down onto the throne room floor. It echoes in the empty room. Glinda, enough! I haven't known Ozpin for very long, but hearing him raise his voice is an unwelcome shock. Glinda, too, seems a little bit subdued, though not at all cowed. Rose. Yes? The nightmares. I look to Ozpin for affirmation. He gives me a tight nod. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to keep them from you. I just didn't want to. To burden us? To sound crazy. Try us. With all her rough edges and harsh words, Glinda is not the easiest person to trust, even as she has saved my life twice. But I can see she's trying. From day one, all she's ever done is try to help me. The least I can do in return is trust her. Taking a deep breath, I hold it in for a few seconds, organizing my thoughts. Then I tell them everything. The nightmares are usually about Grimm attacks. They're always different. I can't predict what will happen. I'm always scared I'll never wake up. I've been having them for as long as I can remember. They spiked the night my parents died. That was putting it mildly. I had tried so hard to push the memory of that night far down, deep down, where I never had to look at it again. Coming back to Beacon meant remembering a lot more than just how to be a ruler groomed for succession. Before that, I was lucky to get 2 or 3 a year. Living in the desert, it became more like 2 or 3 a month. And ever since I left, every night? It's been hard to sleep. So at least on a subconscious level, you've already been attempting to attune with Crescent Rose. I quirk my head to the side, the name striking a familiar chord within me, though I can't place where I had heard it before. So wait, do my nightmares have something to do with, the protection magic? The one Ozpin used to keep this plane safe? Is that why you guys want to know about them? They aren't nightmares, Ruby. They're visions. Crescent Rose is a powerful tool, locked within the throne itself and tied to whoever dares rest upon it. I get up quickly, glancing over my shoulder to look at the seat of the throne as though it might bite. With time, I can help you train to master it. What is it, exactly? Can I see the future? Nothing so useful. The things, the visions, they're always so vivid. But I never thought they were real. I thought it was I was just broken or sick. They are real. Everything you saw was actually happening at that very moment. That is just one of the many powers of Crescent Rose. It's a connection to the entirety of the plane, your kingdom, your territory. As a technical usurper to the throne, my abilities were limited to little more than being a warning signal. I can feel, more or less, when and where grim attacks are happening. Sometimes I can prevent a tragedy, and I can keep them out of the city. But you, Ruby, a full-blooded Rose, the kind of power you're already wielding far outstrips anything even your parents accomplished. You should have only become attuned to the throne once the coronation was complete. If you are already tapping into Crescent Rose to scope the perimeters of your kingdom, he trails off, lost in thought. We need to begin training at once. If you don't get a handle on these powers soon, I'm not sure what might happen. My parents and Crow, they knew about this too? Yes. Crow would often tell me how intense it could be to wield Crescent Rose. The monarchs would often become trapped on the throne for weeks at a time as they used Crescent Rose to protect our plane. I remember how Ozpin looked the first time I met him, chained to the chair like a prisoner. To become one with the ley lines mapped across the land, it can take a terrible toll on the body, more so if you aren't a Rose. I was hoping we'd have more time before you started seeing these things, that I could ease you into it. The lines on his face deepen, eyes closed. Exhaustion weighs on him, heavy iron woven into the ends of his robes. It's such a terrible burden, Ruby, and I didn't want to overwhelm you. So this is what it means to be a Rose. As far as inheritances go, I really could have used something less traumatic. A Rose, yes, and a ruler. It's a complex issue, Ruby, and a delicate one. But please try not to be angry with your parents or Crow. I know if you were my daughter, I would have withheld the truth from you as long as I could. Personally, I would have begun preparing her for it the moment she got her first nightmare. How is keeping her in the dark any better than arming her with the truth? Most people aren't prepared to tell a small child their nightmares are real. That was something that hadn't quite sunk in yet. Every time I'd seen a Grim kill someone in a dream, every terrible slaughter I had thought was just a sick, twisted part of my imagination. It was really happening, all of it. Maybe sensing my distress, Ozpin lowers his gaze to me, sounding gentle. Are you alright, Ruby? I know this is a lot to take in. I'll deal with it. Other than seeing things as they're happening somewhere else, what kind of powers does Crescent Rose afford me? At their peak, your parents were able to quell a horde simply by sitting on the throne and willing it. Though again, it was hazardous to their health. That's why Crow and I find it hard to believe that a mere pack of Grimm slaughtered them that night. Yang and I have walked the walls of the castle a few times as well. I look around to the throne room, chillingly aware for the first time that this is where it happened. My parents had died, right here. I don't even know how they managed to get this far in. Nor I. As for Crescent Rose's potential, the way it manifests in each new monarch is unique to the individual. You may develop a power that we can't even begin to predict. And can I control when I see things? Can I make the nightmares stop? In time, yes, with a lot of meditation and a lot of physical training as well. Magic is a tricky thing. You will always be connected to Crescent Rose by virtue of your bloodline. The coronation simply solidified it. So the nightmares may never truly stop, but at the very least, we can probably get you back to only 1 or 2 a year. I can live with that. When do we start? Tonight. And every night after. Though for the rest of the day, we have other duties to attend to. We still need to contact the other planes. So you mean even if I learned how to use Crescent Rose, we still need other people's help? Can't I wiggle my fingers and make the land fight for me or something? It's not quite so simple. Crescent Rose's more destructive powers are a last measure against the darkness. Trust me, Ruby, you don't want to know what it feels like to have all that power flowing through you. Uncomfortably, I wonder if I should tell him. I already do know. When I attuned myself to the throne my first day back in the castle, and let the throne taste my blood, I had felt it, like channeling lightning through my body. It actually felt kind of good. So, shall we be off? Though I would understand if you want to spend the rest of the day alone or learning of Crescent Rose. What do you want to do, Ruby? Open a portal to another plane or stay in the castle? I hope this isn't like a serious decision that will have lasting consequences. On one hand, it's pretty interesting, it's pretty good, I would say, for Ruby to learn more about Crescent Rose, but at the same time there's like that pressing matter, that sense of urgency to open a portal to another plane. But it could kill her, so there's like that risk, like I don't know if I'm actually ready for that. So maybe if we bide our time and actually learn more about Crescent Rose, that might help us. Even through the thick layers of wool and cotton, I feel cold. I know this might sound a little cowardly, but I don't want to open a portal today. I'd like some time alone to process this. And later tonight, can we talk more about Crescent Rose and what this all means? Of course. Though she doesn't say anything, Glinda sucks in her cheeks to prevent an outright scowl, eyelid visibly twitching. She probably is going to scold me later for not stepping up to the challenge. But this is all too much to take in at once. Excusing myself, I exit the throne room and close the doors behind me. Oh, I hope I didn't make the wrong choice. Resting against them for a second, I close my eyes, take a deep breath, and count to 10. I've been dragged around for too long. Even if it's just for today, I'm not going to follow anyone's schedule except my own. What should I do now? Check on the dragons, explore the castle, go to the library. This would probably open up more dialogue with Yang. And had we accepted Yang's offhanded comment, flirty comment, this is probably where we would develop their relationship. I think we need to go to the library. That would be good. Unlike other parts of the castle, where pages and servants rush about on their daily tasks, the library is more restricted. A castle guard stands on duty in front of the heavy doors, one of our people, I'm glad to note. Every time I see a soldier with Torchwick's symbol on their chest, I get nervous. The guard nods to me as I enter the room. This is a good place to hang around when I need silence, but not to feel too cooped up like I would in my room. I enjoy the hushed atmosphere. I remember being in here as a child when my mother read out loud to me. The librarian at the time had always been strict with me, and while I resented it at the time, I sort of understand now. When I run a hand along the spine of the nearest book, I see the binding shiver with magic. Each tome has been carefully enchanted to prevent aging and damage, but even that isn't enough to protect some of the older ones I spot. Those are locked behind glass and key. Remembering what Glinda said about forgetting my runes, I search for a primer on the subject when a loud noise crashes through the library. Your Majesty! Oh, so the man in green was probably this guy, the person that Yang mentioned that she had gotten all the schematics from. It's Bartholomew Oobleck. A man rushes over to me, shaking my hand furiously. At first I can't place him, but he starts to talk. I feel recognition blooming in the back of my mind. Master Oobleck! Ah! If it isn't the prodigal queen returning to her old hunting grounds, I must say it's quite a pleasure to know that you're still alive and healthy after all these years, young lady. A lot of us had started to give up hope. You do remember me, don't you, dear girl? Though it has been a while, so I will understand if you don't. As if I could forget a personality as big as that. Master Oobleck, it's good to see you too. Oh, and I do apologize for not being at the coronation. I had a few important experiments that needed my constant supervision, lest they go awry. He gasps. Egads! That reminds me. Looking stricken and pale, he zips away in a flutter of paper and semblance. In his wake, the wind kicks up around me. Just as quickly, he returns with a stack of books nearly as tall as he is. Never mind, all is well. Nearly forgot to put the timer on the latest batch. While I was out though, I did remember Lady Goodwitch requested you be given your required reading for the year, so here you are. Without another word of warning, he tries to dump the entire pile into my arms. Given that you're going to be someone out of practice after so many years away, I of course offered my services as a tutor, as I did when you were younger, Queen Rubilla. Putting the books aside on the nearest flat surface, I throw up both hands to try and get him to quiet down. Ah, stop, 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 stop. He stops, looking at me expectantly. Just Ruby is fine, Master. I insist. The librarian pauses for a solid 4 seconds, longer than I've ever recalled seeing him stay still. I can almost see the calculations running behind his spectacles. Very well, fine by me. Fewer syllables too. Very efficient. So what can I help you with? Well, now that I'm here, would it be possible to take a look at some records of early history on the plane? Of course, my dear. Anything more specific? Anything about Crescent Rose? Anything about how the Rose lineage started? How he claimed rulership? If we have anything on that, that would be great. His glasses gleam with a sudden intensity. A hefty request, though not an unusual one. To understand which direction the tree grows, one must discover how the roots lie. You always were such a smart young lady. I truly look forward to working with you more in the future, and if you need anything at all— oh god, there is she again. How many times did I— Blinking in surprise at the non sequitur, I take a moment to realize Oobleck isn't even talking to me anymore. He speeds over to the window overlooking the courtyard outside, a scowl darkening his face. If I've told her once, I've told her 1,000 times not to try coming in unescorted. Those ruffians will look at any excuse to bother her. Grumbling under his breath, he unlatches the window and pokes his head outside. Down below, I can faintly hear the sounds of an argument, most of it getting carried away by the wind. How did he manage to hear that? It's so faint, even now. Joining him, I take a glance down myself. Oh, that's Blake. That girl, you know her? Sort of. I saw her at the menagerie. She seemed like she knew me. Does she live in the castle? No, she comes and goes as she pleases, usually. Louder, he shouts down to try and get their attention. Hey! Hey, you there! Hello! Yes, please allow Miss Belladonna through the doors. I am in need of her assistance. Hello! Hello? The argument below continues on, just as intense. It seems they can't hear Oobleck over the winds either. Straightening out, he adjusts the spectacles so that they aren't sliding down his nose. Oh, curses. If you'll excuse me, Ruby, I need to go make sure Miss Belladonna isn't arrested again. As soon as I blink, he is gone. When I look outside, he's joined the pair of guards harassing the Faunus woman. Curious about what is going on, I follow Oobleck down the stairs and into the courtyard. The librarian is deep in debate with 2 of the guards. Drawn by the commotion, a few more appear, all of them looking tense. And I'm telling you that Miss Belladonna is bringing me invaluable data that I need for my research. Research that benefits the entire kingdom, mind you. You can yell all you like, that doesn't change the law. No visitors are allowed further than this point, especially ones that have no business being here. The librarian looks ready to tear his hair out. She does have business here, aren't you listening? I've been living here for longer than you've been alive. I know this young lady, and I trust her. She's been in the castle countless times and never caused any trouble. I can vouch for that. Listen, we all have... She casts a derisive eye over the Faunus. Friends we want to be able to invite inside. If you want the cat sniffing around here so badly, you need signed approval from the manager of trade, proving she has legitimate cause to be here. Lifting up a sheet of paper, the guard taps at it with her free hand, and not a shoddy forgery like the one she has stuffed into her pocket. The Faunus woman, silent until now, speaks up. It's not a forgery. Torchwick signed that himself. I watched him do it. Sure you did. I doubt someone like you knows what the manager of trade even looks like, much less his signature. Oh, of course, how silly of me. You're right. Why would I need to know what my boss's signature looks like? Just quit while you're ahead. Are you calling me a liar? Look, if you're so sure that's a forgery, then why haven't you locked me up? Forgery of castle documents is a greater crime than showing up at the doors and asking to be let in. Be quiet. I'll quiet down when you start treating me with respect. Will someone collar this cat already before she breaks something? The fur on the Faunus's ear and tails bristle up, her teeth baring in a snarl. Touch me and you'll draw away a bloody stump. A feeling of dread rises in me as one of the guards moves in, a pair of shackles at the ready to cart the Faunus away. None of this sits right with me. Wait a minute! I lift up my voice for attention, and all activity immediately stops. Just what is going on here? I can't help but notice these guards are Torchwick's people, which is already a strike against them in my eyes. Your Majesty! Oh, Ruby, thank goodness. These ruffians won't unhand my friend. She's being a disruptive presence. She wasn't being disruptive until you started threatening her. Enough! They fall silent again. I turned to the Faunus woman, trying to remember what Oobleck had called her. Miss Belladonna, was it? Blake Belladonna. You and Oobleck work together? Occasionally. Miss Belladonna lives in the southern forests and deals with entirely different species of Grimm than we're accustomed to here. We compare notes. It's important to share knowledge between neighboring territories, especially now that we've been spotting unusual migration patterns in the hordes. Though I guess it's too much to hope that some people would understand the importance of our work. You can do your work elsewhere. She still isn't allowed inside the castle grounds. But my tools are here. How am I supposed to study the samples she brings us without my tools? You're just... It's okay, Master Oobleck. I'll leave as soon as I have my document back. Roman can explain why his permission slip got branded as a forgery. You heard the lady. I tilt my head towards Blake meaningfully, keeping my eyes on the guard. After a moment of hesitation, the guard returns the note. Blake can't hide her pleased smile. Thank you, Your Majesty. Your reputation precedes you. The guard points to Blake, waving over one of her subordinates. Just get her out of here. No need for that. I'll escort her myself. They stand down at my command. I take Blake by the elbow and lead her back through the courtyard out to the main gates. No one stops us. Oobleck is close at our heels. Some of the fire leaves her once she realizes the fight is over. I really didn't mean to cause any trouble. I know, dear girl. And thank you for stepping in when you did. She remembers my title and straightens her back, tense again. Your Majesty. Just Ruby is fine. She blinks slowly, but otherwise shows no response. You're very hands-on for a noble, aren't you? Her yellow gaze falls on my hand at her elbow. I let her go, feeling the heat rise up in my cheeks. Yeah. I know the artist who draws Blake in this one too. His stuff is pretty cool. And I actually really love the design of Blake in this one. In this game. Sorry you got dragged into this. She pauses. Ruby? It was no problem at all. Master Oobleck is a trusted ally. A friend to him is a friend to me. I'm also interested in the work you two are doing. We need all the information we can gather on the Grimm. We certainly do. I need you back whenever you are available, Blake. I'll return as soon as I can. Maybe after I manage to grab an audience with Ozpin. The mention of Ozpin makes me tilt my head curiously. Any way I can help with that too? If you and Oobleck have important research to share with us, the Summer Rose Court would love to have it. Tense silence stretches between us as we reach the gates. I can feel Blake scrutinizing me, like she's trying to peel me open and look inside. I've been trying to get an audience with Ozpin for years now, but each time we get close, something like this happens. I'm sorry to hear that. Oobleck, couldn't you have passed a message along to Ozpin? I could have, but this is the first time I've heard of this. I didn't want to entrench you in my political problems. Well, how about me? I'm pretty entrenched as it is. Tell me what you want. Why should I? Now she's testing me. I'm no good at this political stuff, but when it's just me and another person, I think I could get my point across well enough. I'd like to hear more about the city Faunus. It doesn't seem like they have representation in the court, and I think that's a shame. And you assume I'm one of them? I'm from the southern forest. I saw you in the menagerie, at the very least. You know your way around. She doesn't say anything to that. If you don't feel comfortable representing the city Faunus, do you know someone who would? Possibly. How does tomorrow afternoon sound? Ozpin will be there as well. How am I supposed to see you when even a legitimate pass gets accused of being a forgery? I'll make sure that doesn't happen again. If you have an address in the city where you feel comfortable accepting letters, please pass it along to me through Master Oobleck. I'll send an official summons for you, so we can do this right. But Torchwick isn't in charge of my house and who gets invited inside. Why are you going out of your way for me like this? So this is probably like the indifferent option. It seems like fun. It's my duty, like a more neutral way. And it's the right thing sounds like the righteous thing to say. Ha, duh. It's the right thing. It's the right thing. We need to hear from all voices, all walks of life. Only by working together can we really achieve any kind of harmony. Did you write that spiel all on your own, or did someone coach you? All on my own. But I had to practice because I got nervous telling people what I really think. Writing it out and thinking about it carefully before I say it means I give it all the weight it deserves. Glinda is sharp with me because she knows she can get away with it, but Blake's completely vulnerable here, yet she still challenged me. I wonder if she's this fearless with everyone. She didn't even bat an eye at the idea of being imprisoned, or worse. I can't leave Castle Grounds without an escort, so that's where she and I part ways. That's cool. The next day, I paced in front of the throne, waiting for Blake to arrive. Once Ozpin and Glinda were made aware of the situation, they agreed to meet with the Faunus representatives. Even though Roman had given Blake a pass, it was his people who had kept her from seeing us. Roman has been interfering with Faunus' attempts to communicate with the court, but why would he do something like that? How deep is his hold on the city anyway? At least half the guards, and he's master of trade as well. Ozpin interrupts my thoughts. Excited? Very. I tried looking up what I could, but there's very little information about the Faunus here. We had Faunus in the desert, but the Kata tribes weren't friendly to strangers. Considering what I've seen, that's starting to make more sense. The Faunus on this plane are split into 3 main groups. The City Faunus, the Southern Forest Faunus, and the Kata tribes to the west. The ones who requested an audience are Forest Faunus. Oh really? I thought Blake was going to bring a City Faunus. This group in particular lives right on the edge of Grim territory. Very far from us, I might add. They still have regular contact with the City Faunus. And they're citizens of the kingdom. We need to cooperate with them. Yang, who's taking a break from training with the regular castle guard, is with us as well. She reclines against the throne with her arms crossed, here in her official capacity as Queen's Guard. So, is it like a delegation, or a group, or just 2? They say they speak for all free Faunus. I don't like the sound of that. It's not long before Blake and her associate arrive. I take my place on the throne, feeling the vines tremble under my hands. Hello, Blake. Your Majesty. She won't be skipping on my title in front of others, it seems. I brought a leader of the City Faunus. Adam Taurus. Oh no. Though we currently reside in the Southern Forest, both of us were born here in Vale and still consider ourselves citizens of the kingdom. Interesting. We are happy to talk to the Queen at last. Despite their words, their discontent is clear. They do not appreciate how many barricades were put in their way before they could reach this moment. Blake and Adam start talking politics and established laws. Their biggest priority is shutting down the menageries. We think the segregation in place has its roots in positive intent. Keep the Faunus and the humans separate to ease tensions in the city. A place for Faunus to open our own businesses and build homes that cater to our specific needs. But it's become clear that the execution is flawed. The menageries lack access to the same benefits that a human neighborhood of similar wealth would. For example, when our water supply became contaminated, we were denied permission to share with our human neighbors while the problem was being fixed. And when we dug our own well in the meantime, it was completely without aid from city engineers or tools. We had to fund it all on our own. As I recall, we did send some of the city engineers down to help you. As I understand, you turned them aside? Because they wouldn't cooperate with the community. All the plans they drafted up would have caused damage to the surrounding buildings, people's homes. And when we tried to communicate that or come up with a different solution, they stormed out. I sink lower in my seat. All of this seems like way too much, and it all took place while I was hiding in the desert. Life has always been difficult for Faunus in this city. Ever since the attack on the Rose Throne 7 years ago, it's deteriorated even further. Humans have an unfair advantage. They're treating us worse than animals. We're trying to salvage this before things get any worse. Suggest ideas, protest. Oh. This sounds like a well-intentioned thing, but would probably strike them pretty wrong. Ask for their proposal. So it's clear what we have right now doesn't work. Let's change it. And how do you propose we do that, Your Majesty? I don't know, that's why you're here. You're the ones who live in the menagerie, so you have first-hand knowledge on what's needed there. And you're the ones who tried to meet with us for so long. What solutions do you propose? Blake and Adam share a look. A moment of tension passes between them, then without another word they carry on as though they've rehearsed this. Our first priority is the destruction of the walls. They were built to protect us, but it's clear they're now being used as a cage. We need every stone torn down. We're still rebuilding parts of the city after the attack on the Rose Throne. We can't spare workers to go destroy it again. What the High Wizard means is we'll need to schedule this carefully and find the resources to begin such a project. We have masons and laborers among the Faunus. Plenty of them have already promised their skills to the task. I just want to stress the importance of dismantling the menagerie walls more than anything else. That's a bold move. We'll need to proceed with caution and wait for a proper time. We've waited long enough. Why are we moving by your time schedule when you aren't the ones directly affected? We don't need your help, just your permission, or you'll slap us with destruction of public property. We might still. The court hasn't agreed to anything yet. Then you haven't been listening to us. What could possibly be holding you back? This is such a waste of time. We can tear the walls down ourselves. You're the only thing standing in our way, and we're losing patience. Is that a threat? That's so charming. Am I supposed to grovel after waiting 3 years for you to even listen to us? Yet now that you have your chance, you're about to waste the opportunity Her Majesty deigned to give you. My companion is merely trying to... The physical barriers between the humans and the Faunus are... Then tell him to mind himself while in the presence of the last Rose Heir. Glinda. He puts a hand on her shoulder, but she shakes him off. This is getting so ugly. This isn't a conversation, it's an argument. What do I do? I don't want them to fight. The vines on the throne, always moving just under the surface, start getting agitated along with me. I'm not sure how it happens, but they respond to my frustration. I should have expected no better from a band of silk-wearing flat teeth. You don't care about anyone except yourselves. I clawed my way out of the Grimm's Teeth mountain trials on my hands and knees. I was the only wizard to arrive in time to save this city 7 years ago. Do not hurl such accusations at me. Don't rest on your laurels. You showed up once and then you abandoned us for 7 years. Whew, it's pretty deep. At that last exchange, a sharp pang of guilt stabs me. The steel vines burst out from their restrictions. The throne is no longer simple stone, but bristling and violent steel, thorns brandishing over every inch. I feel them prick just under my skin, easily sliding through the joints of my armor and the thin fabric of my clothes, and energy surges through me. Everyone, please, enough! The wind of my semblance amplifies and grows. A gust of hot desert wind tears through the room in a sudden blast, knocking everyone back a few steps. This is getting us nowhere. I didn't have this meeting so that we could just stand here insulting each other. As I calm down, so do the winds. They settle down, leaving rose petals scattered across the floor. We are here to find a better solution. Or at least the start of one. I still need your assistance with the oncoming Grimm threat. You need our help as well. We should be allies. The creatures of Grimm grow bolder by the day, even as we are distracted by matters here at home. Soon it won't matter who is Faunus and who is human. That's very easy for you to say. Regardless, we brought you here for more than just peace talks. The work you've been doing with Oobleck has not escaped my notice. I'm very impressed by it. Had I known you were trying to contact us, I might have reached out to you sooner. The conversation winds down. After the tense moment we had just escaped, I find myself growing optimistic again. There's no reason we all can't work together. Perhaps we should take a break to allow time for everyone to have a more level head on their shoulders. I want to continue these talks to reach a more firm agreement. Would you like to return tomorrow? Of course. I'll bring the other representative as well. We'll take our leave then. Wait a minute. Miss Belladonna, could you and I speak privately about something? Blake takes a deep breath, opening her mouth to respond, but before she can, Adam speaks for her. Of course she can. He reaches out and grabs her shoulder, squeezing with a white-knuckled grip. Ugh. God. Gross, gross, gross. Then he is escorted out. Hopping off the throne, I walk over to Blake. Would you like to take a walk around the castle? What? So we can talk. Oh, of course. Mindful of how I had dragged her around last time, this time I gesture outside to let her lead. Yang makes us as though to follow us, but I give her my best scowly face. Alone, Yang. I'm just trying to be a Queensguard, but holler if you need me. I'm sorry things got so heated in there. Me too. It's a delicate subject. Yeah, no kidding. But I hope you and I can continue being friends and helping each other. Of course. I'll ask Master Oobleck to help me compile our information into something easier to read, and then we can share with Lord Osmond and Lady Glinda. Sounds like a plan. Do you want me to get started right away? Is that where we're headed? Because the library is that way. She points in the opposite direction. I'm taking the long way around so I can ask you something. Would you like to be a member of the Summer Rose Court? She stops in her tracks. Then she shakes her head, laughing under her breath. What? I'm serious. We have Yang to represent the western part of this plain, Glinda the north, Ozpin the east, and I'm here for the central part. Ideally, we're getting 1 or 2 people from each of the other plains, so we also need someone here to speak for the Faunus in the south. What makes me your first choice? I like you. That sounds like a flirty option. I mean, I do like her. She sounds like a very logical and well-mannered person. But, I have other plans. Wink wonk. You're the logical choice. I feel like you make sense. You're proactive and you can keep cool. I would just feel better knowing we have an actual Faunus here. An actual Faunus. You know what I mean. I just don't want us in a situation again where someone from the menageries is trying to get our help and we ignore them. That doesn't sit right with me. It's so wrong. I don't mind joining your court. But do you really have the authority to appoint me? Of course I do. I'm the queen. I think we both know better than that. What? I'd like to work together, but not if we aren't going to be honest about what's really going on here. My eyebrows furrow in confusion. I don't understand. It's all very convenient. The young and beautiful queen, noble and kind-hearted, lost to the desert for years and years, waits, discovered in the middle of the darkest chapter of our history, rushed back in utter secrecy, and now expected to lead her people to stability and peace? I know a story when I see one. It's not a story. I am the queen. Blake rolls her eyes. Oh no. You really don't believe me? You think Ozpin made me up or something? Like a puppet? Frankly, yes. Why else would the queen be allowed around a dangerous Faunus all alone? She gestures around us at us. She gestures around us at the empty halls and my heartbeat starts to quicken. She does have a point. You're young, inexperienced, a perfect figurehead for Ozpin and Goodwitch to pass whatever rules they like without taking the blame. I'm 17. That's an adult in the Xiaolong tribe, you know. Managing to stay alive past an arbitrary age doesn't make you an adult. It's what you've been through. You have no idea what I've been through. I know you want to help, but you need to wake up. Or someone like Ozpin or Adam is going to eat you alive. Like this. Oh boy. There's no other warning before I hear the rattle of chains. Blake moves impossibly fast, holding out her weapon and stretching it across my throat, shoving me into a wall. Show me your strength as queen. You can't, can you? She presses against me harder. Oh boy. You're completely defenseless. That's what they do to pawns, you know. They let them take the hits. Despite her words, her actions, I feel no anger from Blake, no hostility. She just looks sad. I blink up at her, my palms pressed against the cool stone. It feels like the arms of the throne, and I focus on that sensation. You'd better let go of me. Or what? I tense up, blasting out with my semblance. It hits Blake full force, knocking her backwards. The winds, 10 times stronger than they had been in the desert, sends her tumbling head over heels down the hallway in a flurry of rose petals. Ah! As I walk over to her, I notice she'd lost her grip on her weapon. Bending down to pick it up, I give it an experimental twirl. A blade made of white bone, connected by solid black chains. I approach her. She's sitting with her back to the wall, ears pressed flat against her skull. Reaching out with a chain scythe, I take the edge of the blade and hold it under her chin. Ooh, how the tables have turned. I'm tougher than I look. She's quiet, eyes narrowed, until I reverse my grip, holding the weapon so that she can grab the handle. After a moment, she does. She stands up and rubs her jaw, testing it by opening her mouth wide and wincing. So that wasn't just a parlor trick back in the throne room. Nope. Flat gold eyes like freshly minted coins stare at me with renewed intensity. How did you do that? That's my semblance, kind of. There's something in my blood, something that makes it very powerful. But that's proof I'm the queen. I'm connected to all sorts of things in the plane. I'll explain it in more detail later, if you like. But in the meantime, is that made of grim bone? Confused by my sudden shift in topic, Blake stares at me for a moment before making the connection. Oh, you mean my chain scythe? She lifts up the weapon, displaying it to me. Yes, does she have a name? No, not yet. But these do. Holding the nameless scythe in one hand, she reaches behind her back and unsheaths a small straight sword, one I'd never even noticed. This is Gamble, and Shroud is right next to him. They're all made of grim and bark of the Ferris tree. But how? Grim bone is unbreakable without magic, and there's not a fire hot enough to mold Ferris bark. It's part of my research with Oobleck. Her eyes widen. Research that I've completely sabotaged by. Her ears droop down, hanging limply atop her skull. By attacking the Queen of Vale. Well, in your defense, you thought you were helping me. I really thought you were an innocent little girl in over her head. She bites her lip to keep from incriminating herself further. You weren't going to hurt me anyway. You're a good person. I can tell that sort of stuff. Lowering her head some, Blake keeps quiet. Queen's intuition. Smug. Exactly. Now come with me. We have a lot to do if we're going to keep the kingdom safe. For everybody. I gesture for her to follow, and she does. Do you have a place to stay in the city? I do. Sometimes. Great, and reliable transportation to the castle if we need you? She pats her outer thighs as we walk. Do my legs count? Technically. But it might be easier for you if we just cut out the question of transportation altogether. Excuse you? We have a bunch of empty rooms that belong to the old court members. We could clear one out and bring your things in. If you want to stay here, that is. She swallows. Could I see the room? Of course, let's go right now. These are some dank Ladybug vibes that I'm getting right now. So whoever is writing this, and of course the illustrators, it's really good. It's really cute. A few days after I approve my first court member, I get a summons from Glinda urging me to meet her in the throne room when I am able. She is waiting for me when I arrive. Hello, Lady Goodwitch. How are things? Only mildly chaotic, so a definite step up from earlier this week. Choosing a Faunus to be your first court member was an inspired decision. I think it was the right one. What do you think? Odder things have come to pass. Only time will tell if she's a valuable addition to our ranks. Valuable or not, I like her. Do you now? I'll assume you have the kingdom's best interest at heart then. I think you might be confused. I think I catch a smile gracing her lips as I brush past her to sit on my throne, but when I turn, her face is neutral. Glinda's teasing aside, I can't help but notice that the throne already feels more comfortable against my skin than it ever had before. So why did you call me here? Just to gossip about my first court member? No, your lessons continue tonight. We must begin learning how to wield the power of Crescent Rose. Cold shivers run down my spine, but I nod in agreement. So how do we start? Today we are focusing on your semblance. After attuning to the throne, its powers have been doubled, as you so kindly demonstrated with the Faunus representatives. But how long can you maintain that power? I'm not sure. I've never tested that. Try now. No further instructions follow that, so I just do as she asks. I hold onto the armrests of the throne, concentrating hard. A gust of wind blows across the empty room, swirling rose petals swept to and fro by the force of it. Glinda stumbles, but doesn't lose her balance. Her cape flaps like a flag in the wind. With no goal in mind, I just let the winds run rampant, coursing through the room. It's confined by the roof and the walls, but I have a feeling if I put more energy into it, I could slam open the doors, crash through the windows. But how are you feeling? She's shouting over the winds, a little drained. How long do I keep this up? As long as you can. As things turn out, we discover my limit is a little over 2 minutes. By the end of it, I'm sweating through my clothes, and it's hard to breathe. Once I recover, we try again, this time standing up and far from the throne. This hardly counts as a field test, but at the very least now we know you don't need to be on the chair itself to access its power. Now, how about maintaining control over it? How concentrated can the winds be? Are you training me or doing experiments on me? Both. I'm trying to discover the limitations of your power. So we're messing around until we figure out what I can and can't do. Yes. Now I want you to try lifting something. Briefly, I thought of Yang. She was more clever than me about testing the rules. I'll bring her to the next lesson. But if she were here now, what would she ask me to do? An idea strikes me. I often use my winds as a boost, to knock people aside or to propel me forward. But what about in other directions? Hey Glinda, step back for a bit. I return to the throne and hop onto the seat, which is the highest thing in the room. Holding onto the back of it for balance, I perch on the armrest. What are you going to do? Something stupid, probably. Jumping off the throne, I activate my semblance with as much force behind it as I can. The winds surge up, lifting me up into the air. This time the winds are so strong Glinda is forced to her knees, instinctively covering her head with one arm as she glares up at me. Ruby! For a few glorious moments, I am airborne, but I can't control the angle of the winds for too long, not with any kind of precision. They hit my legs, flipping me right side down. In my panic, I lose all control and go flying off to a corner of the throne room, falling to the floor in jumble of metal and leather. Ouch. Wrong outfit to try flying in. But I flew! For a few seconds. I know I did. Sitting up, I rub the back of my head as Glinda's heels click closer to me. She grabs my forearm, helping me up to my feet. Strong enough to lift someone in full armor, then. She sighs. So now what? Let's tone down the excitement for a moment. Force and power come easily to you. Now we'll test self-control. Pulling a gold coin out of her pocket, she balances it on its edge, so it is standing up like a little wheel. Move it as far as you can without lifting it from the floor or knocking it aside. What? That's stupid. I didn't ask for your opinion, Rose. I'm just gonna knock it over. Try not to. For a moment I wonder if she's messing with me, but Glinda doesn't break out into a smile or a laugh. I crouch down in front of the coin, pursing my lips. Holding out a hand, I push forward with my semblance as delicately as possible. The coin wobbles from the sudden breeze and rattles onto its side. See? Not satisfied, Glinda has me do the coin test at least a dozen more times before she lets me give up. What was the point of that anyway? What was the point of jumping off your throne like a lunatic? We're seeing what you can do. Wielding Crescent Rose takes self-control. These tests are nothing more than using it to amplify your own power. The real test comes later. Tapping into the energies of the land of Crescent Rose itself, and then allowing it to use you. Disquieted, I sink lower and sink on the floor, fiddling with the gold coin. Sounds fun. Your parents did this before you, and my predecessor guided them as I guide you. It's what will keep us safe, Rose. Speaking of which, where is your glaive? I left Little Thorn in my room. Go fetch it. The very first thing Glinda does is enchant Little Thorn so that it won't break against Grim Hide. My grip tightens around the haft, watching her whisper words of protection and strength. Wish we had this 7 years ago. We have been fighting back, learning. Once the spells are done, she surprises me by moving her hands to cover mine. We won't make the same mistakes. Okay, we are closing in on an hour in length, so I think this is a nice place to stop. But I think this is my favorite episode that I've recorded so far. I believe his username on Tumblr is WallyPoodoo, but his rendition of Blake is just really, really interesting. It's definitely really striking, and I like his interpretation of her with the sharp ears, the darker skin. It's really beautiful, and as I mentioned earlier, the writing between Ruby and Blake in their scenes was actually really done well, and you can kind of sense that blossoming friendship or relationship if you choose to flirt with her, I feel. And it was a lot of fun reading through that and seeing the art sprites change from one to another, so I'm having a lot of fun. Thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give the video a like and a comment in the comment section below. And if you want to stay up to date with future content, you can subscribe and click the little bell icon to receive notifications of new uploads. And that's all for now. I'll see you guys in the next episode of RWBY Summer Rose Court. Until then.